the argument of the existence of the mind is that self-referential quality, that experience. There's a versus the strictly physical existence of the brain and that it controls all of our behaviors and actions. So my thoughts on the mind versus brain argument. You can describe them as the same thing simply because they are kind of seamless. One has a physical existence, the other has an existence that is not precisely as easily defined, hence the argument. You could also say that that same sort of drive is what controls behavior, and it outlines consciousness. So I'm still trying to wrap my head completely around the questions in order to answer them properly. There's an argument of the existence of mind and what it is, and some people believe that only the brain exists. That seems like a very mechanistic, wishful thinking sort of thing that physicians suffered through up until the beginning of the last century when, quantum physics stepped in and said, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really problematic about Newtonian physics. At the very, very bottom of this, we're calling it existence, and that's our best guess, but at the very, very bottom of that is all kinds of, very strange actions, very strange activities. I prefer myself to sort of rewrite that idea of consciousness using what I've discovered personally, and so models that I use that I've found, again, successful and or useful or pragmatic, whatever. In terms of awareness, in terms of not just what it means to be conscious, but why you might be conscious. One model that I like to use, the model I like to use, I guess, is what I've decided to start talking about. So I'm answering question number 3, mostly, up front. Again, trying to answer all 3 at once. If existence has this very, powerful and obvious physical aspect to it, and that's the one that we spend most of our time in, we could say that behavior is very biological. Is driven by our basic biologic needs, Maslow's hierarchy. But if we look at that as an animalistic level, and we look at the mechanics of the natural world, people don't look at a rock and say that rock has consciousness. People are not so sure about a dog, even though dogs tend to really only reflect the consciousness of their closest bonded, human, and that's what gives them the appearance of consciousness. In the end, an animal and a rock have different levels of consciousness. Now, am I saying that the rock is a conscious thing? Well, if nothing else, it's hard to say. Because, again, when you get to the bottom of that Newtonian physics, everybody hopes that that rock has something going on at the very, very bottom where it's not moving. But, of course, that's not at all true. A rock is continuously changing. It's just changing over such vast spans of time that we can't really perceive it very well. Same with water and plant life. And then we get this idea that the more evolved matter is, the more organized, the more self-organized, if we're going to use the language of chaos, the more evolution exists in a material, the more it appears to have a conscious sort of behavior. Take that same scale and apply it to a human being, and you get people who walk around very, very unaware. People who are wearing uncomfortable clothing. Why? Do they not know that it's uncomfortable? Are they not like, why am I wearing I'm wearing these clothes because they're simple or they look nice, but without ever having a physical sensation of discomfort regarding it. But then if somebody comes up to them and asks them all of these questions, are your clothes uncomfortable? Do you like the way they feel when you move? Or do they constrict your breathing? Can you breathe in what you're wearing? Are your feet comfortable in the shoes that you're wearing? And slowly you get these tiny increments of awareness. Increasing awareness, and this is the model I was talking about earlier, increasing awareness seems to create a change in all the, what's thought of as you talk about the four, elements as various kind of naturalistic religions and shamanic religions like to think of: the earth, air, fire, water. Earth being the physical, grounded. Water being the the emotional system. You gain physical awareness. You gain emotional awareness. You gain intellectual awareness. You gain social awareness. Each of these builds on top of the others, and then you can continue on. If we're going to use, for example, Tim Leary's 8th Circuit model, which, again, I find very successful, very useful, and Tara Alley's interpretation of Tim Leary's 8th Circuit brain, of course, Robert Anton Wilson, and you can learn the next, 4 levels up. You can learn somatic. You can not just learn how to feel in your body, how to survive in your body. You don't just learn the skills it takes to survive. You can learn pleasure, enjoyment, relaxation, release of tension. In the emotional realms, you can become very well emotionally developed. This is something that our society struggles with, as displayed in various neglect of artistic endeavors and the enjoyment of what might be considered simple art. Anything from pop music to blockbuster movies. Very simple resonance, very little myth involved, not a whole lot going on, but that's the level that people are emotionally aware of themselves at. That is the level of emotion that they can handle. Similarly, with intellectual endeavors, our society is prizing those right now, which is nice, always a good. And you can move up to the mythic level of that. I think I'm explaining the circuits a little strangely. If you're using the 8 circuits, you start off with the bottom: physical, emotional, intellectual, symbolic, the 4th one being social, the 5th one again being pleasure, and it's the 6th, that's what I skipped, was the 6th one. The 6th one being kind of spirituality, that idea that emotion and spirituality are tied together. Intellectual concepts, that a bit of information can exist. Mythic is that information can exist on several levels. In the story of the Hydra, there is the monster that's got many, many heads, and when you cut one off, more grow in its place, whereas that could also be viewed as multiple layers of information if you recognize that myth was used to describe a certain type of person, a certain type of situation, right? So you have new levels of that you can explore, and that's Circuit 8. And then, Tim Leary and Robert Anton Wilson and Antero Alley, they all kind of get to the 8th Circuit, and they know it's there, but nobody has a really good description. My personal favorite is quantum non-local, is the one Antero Alley uses. I think it's the most fun, if nothing else. So that awareness building up on each individual intelligence, and those are only the 8 that we know about right now. Who knows? Maybe there could be more. So going all the way back to the question, hopefully I've laid enough groundwork and haven't been too sporadic with my answer. Sporadic's not at all the right word to use there, is it? Oh well. Scattered is a simpler and probably more accurate imagery to describe what just happened out of my face.